Hello, welcome to Miranda's Wellness and welcome to episode 3 of my Happy Healthy Pregnancy series. My name is Miranda Partridge. I'm a nutritional medicine practitioner. This is my channel and I'm really excited about today's video because it was kind of a requested one. I put a couple of polls up on my Instagram stories last week, and this was one of those topics that a lot of you really wanted to learn about, which is a low toxin pregnancy. Now, I know that there is a lot of confusion out there about toxins, so I want to start by clearing up what toxins are, why they should be a concern, and especially during pregnancy, the sort of things that we can do in order to, minimize our risks with those and clear up any, myths that are out there about toxins. So for starters, toxins, there are so many. In our world that we live in, it is very, very difficult to completely avoid toxins. So realistically, what I encourage everybody to do is just do their best to avoid toxins as often as they can. I just do my best. There's no way that I am perfect, but also at the same time, I also live in this very toxic world. So, walking down the street along a busy road, I will be breathing in toxins from the pollution from the cars that are driving past me. And there's not much that I can really do about that. But there are definitely different strategies that we can have in order to counteract the stuff that we can't avoid. And there's plenty of things that we can do at home to avoid bringing extra toxins into our life. Now, with pregnancy, the one thing that you need to understand is you cannot detox while you are pregnant. It is very, very dangerous. So if anybody has advised you to do that, just seek another opinion, basically, because it can be a really dangerous thing for a pregnant woman. It can be really dangerous to your baby, and the last thing we want is to have a negative outcome. You may have a buildup of toxins during your pregnancy from before, especially if you haven't ever done a proper detox before, but it's definitely not a time in your life where you want to conduct a detox. That doesn't mean that we can't do things to avoid toxins or just help the body's natural detoxification processes in a very, very gentle way, but doing an actual detox is not a good idea. Now, when I'm talking about a detox, I'm not talking about those skinny teas or anything that's to do with weight loss, because that's not the point of a proper detox. A proper detox can be undertaken when you're not pregnant. It's a really good idea to undertake a detox about 3 months before you decide to conceive a baby, because that's going to give your baby the best chance that you possibly can. So if you can finish a detox and then 3 months later try to start conceiving after then you're going to give your baby such a great chance at life, because there will be so many toxins no longer present in your tissues. However, of course, there are, times where you get pregnant unexpectedly, and that's totally fine as well. I don't want you to worry that you're, causing excess harm to your baby, because there is plenty that you can do now, even though you haven't detoxed, to protect your baby from the harms of any toxins. Toxins themselves can store, especially in our fat cells, in our organs and that sort of thing. So the point of a detox is to liberate those toxins and adequately get rid of them. Part of a proper detox is really enhancing your gut function so that you can actually really properly eliminate any toxins that will get eliminated that way. But you can also eliminate toxins through your skin, through your kidneys, so your urine, through your breath. There's so many different ways that we can actually expel toxins as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But today we are not talking about doing an actual detox. We're just talking about toxins in pregnancy. Now, there are a few different types of toxins. It is really important to be mindful and do some research about the sort of toxins that you can be exposed to in this country. Now, part of the toxic world that we live in is that, 50 years ago there was a bunch of toxins like DDT, for example, that were widely used, and we were told that they were safe. They weren't actually properly tested. And unfortunately, DDT, for example, even if you haven't sprayed DDT yourself, if your grandparents were exposed to it, it will be in your breast milk when you feed your child, because it's one of those toxins that really doesn't break down very well. DDT is linked to male infertility, so especially if you're having a little boy, you don't really want to be increasing your exposure to anything else that might affect that. And if you can liberate those toxins before you get pregnant, then that's great. So things like endocrine disruptors, which basically are they block hormones or they mimic hormones, and they are related to hormone-related cancers like breast cancer, for example. They are in plastics and perfumes and things like that. They're known as bisphenols and phthalates. So that's something that we can avoid. We'll talk about that in a moment. Heavy metals, we definitely come into contact with heavy metals a lot, whether we're breathing them in, whether they're in our food, but we can avoid them. There are pesticides in our foods. There are chemicals that colour and flavour and preserve our foods and even our skincare. There's so many harmful chemicals in skincare as well. And even things like electromagnetic frequencies can be considered a toxin to the body. So like I said, we're going to come into contact with these things. If you take the train to work, you'll be in contact with electromagnetic frequencies, especially here in Brisbane. I know we have free Wi-Fi on the trains, so you'll be in contact with that even if you don't necessarily have Wi-Fi at home, or if you put in processes to stop the contact with the EMFs as much as you possibly can. Why should you avoid toxins during your pregnancy? Well, there's a number of reasons why we should avoid toxins. First of all, we want to really protect our gut health as much as we can. As a mother, your gut health, especially if you have a vaginal birth, the state of your gut health and the gut flora that you have will be passed directly on to your baby. And it's going to set them up with a great immune system and all of these things. However, if you have gut health issues, that can be passed on to your baby. Anything that we can do to prevent any negative effects of passing on our gut bacteria is, going to be really beneficial. So one of those methods of improving your gut flora is by avoiding these toxins that we're going to talk about. Having any disruption in your gut flora can lead to leaky gut, which can mean that you just have digestive issues in general. You might have allergies, you might have intolerances where you can't actually digest different foods, and having poor gut health is related to certain cancers. It's related to autoimmune conditions. There are so many reasons why we want to give our babies the best gut health that we possibly can. And, we want good gut health for ourselves as well. Another reason to avoid toxins as much as we possibly can is to reduce our risk of premature birth. Premature birth is not only an incredibly stressful thing to go through, it can really set up your baby for, not the greatest outcome sometimes. If they have been born early enough that their lungs haven't developed properly, that could cause issues with their breathing and things later in life. So obviously everything that you're doing when you're pregnant is to try and keep the baby in there as long as you possibly can, to give them the best gestation possible. And another reason is we want to improve the neurodevelopment and just general development of the baby. One thing to understand about your DNA replication and your cell division and that sort of thing, especially at the very, very start of your pregnancy, is that one of the pathways that regulates those things also is very much in charge of detoxifying a lot of chemicals from your bodies. If your liver is overburdened by different toxins, then it's not going to be able to do its job properly. And we want to support those pathways as much as we possibly can. So it's not just about eliminating toxins from your life, it's also about improving how those pathways function so that they can do DNA replication and cell division as much as possible and help the baby to develop, because the speed at which that baby grows is incredible. It's very, very fast. So if you can supply your body with the nutrients that it needs to support those pathways and, you know, not distract it with toxins that it needs to clear, you know, you're doing the best that you possibly can for your baby, which is really, really exciting. I think I get a bit nerdy and a bit excited about stuff like that. Some of the toxins that you might come across. A lot of us can be aware of the fact that our skincare, cosmetics, cleaning products that we use around the house, and other things like that are filled with chemicals. And it's very easy to be complacent with these things because it seems very everyday to just use them, but we don't really realize the amount of toxins that are in them. We can absorb toxins in a number of ways. So obviously there's the food and the drink that we consume, and we can absorb those toxins digestively. There's the stuff that we put on our skin. People don't realize how well our skin can absorb basically anything, including chemicals. We can breathe toxins in as well. We can absorb them actually in our eyes. And part of the skin that a lot of people don't realize is that your vaginal cavity is actually really, really absorbent. So we really want to take care with what we're actually putting up there as well. And that's, you know, if we're not pregnant and we're, you know, we've got our periods and stuff. So we want to think about, you know, what products we're using in order to collect the blood and that sort of thing. So because there can be a lot of pesticides and bleaches and nasty chemicals in tampons and pads and that sort of thing. The thing about toxins is that they come from places that can be quite obvious and a lot of places that might not necessarily be that obvious. So I'm going to go through a few different ways to avoid toxins in our lives, and this can be applied to anyone. You don't have to be pregnant in order to do these things. And I just really want you to keep in mind that I don't expect anyone to be able to change all of this overnight. This is stuff that I do as much as I possibly can, and it's taken me years to be able to do a lot of this stuff. And it definitely depends on the week as to what I can and can't avoid. But I just do my best, and that's all you really should be aiming to do, because the reality is if you are stressing about these things, that stress can cause inflammation in the body, which can overburden your liver anyway. So you just want to do this in a very easygoing way. I would highly suggest with a lot of these products that, especially because to me waste is something that's really, really important, that you just replace things as you run out rather than go out and buy an entire new cupboard of every single item that I mention. It's definitely best to just, you know, use up what you've got and then go and find an alternative straight away. First of all, I think one of the easiest ways to reduce our toxin exposure is to buy spray-free and organic food. Grow our own food, or that you can even just consult the Dirty Dozen Plus and Clean 15 lists, which are released every single year of the foods that are most and least exposed to pesticides. So the ones that are most exposed to pesticides are the best to buy organically and in season, and the ones that are least exposed to pesticides are okay to buy not organically if you can't. And when it comes to organic food, for the most of my pregnancy, I have eaten about 80 to 90% organic. Sometimes it's not viable, and I do the best that I can. I'm not a stickler for it. I won't go to a friend's house and ask specifically for them to buy organic food. I'm not that sort of person. I will eat whatever you give me as long as I can actually eat it. But yeah, I do what I can. I buy as much as I can organically, and some weeks it can be a lot less than usual. Completely depends on my budget and that sort of thing. But when I can, I would prefer to get my leafy greens organically, and I would prefer to get my meat organically. But like I said, sometimes it's not an option. So then I look at my Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen lists, and I find them very, very helpful. One thing that I love doing is growing my own vegetables. However, this year we haven't really been that good at it. So, you know, it's another thing. Like the last 2 years, we've been great with growing our own vegetables. But because we got married this year, then we went on our honeymoon and got pregnant, Blake bought a truck and had to do that one up, and now he's doing up another truck. So his time is completely taken, and you know, I'm trying to run 2 businesses while also being pregnant. It's just not been a priority to us to be growing our own vegetables. But you do what you can, and if you are growing your own, that's a really cheap way to get spray-free produce. It does take time, it takes a lot of patience, and a lot of learning as well. So there will be a learning curve if you're going to grow your own vegetables, but it is really rewarding. Even if you only get like 1 or 2 eggplants from your little eggplant bush, or you know, you might only get a couple of chilies or whatever it is, it's still rewarding. It's so much more fun, and when you actually get to cook produce that you have grown from seeds or even a seedling yourself, like, that just feels amazing. So that in itself, I think, is a reward, and it's very beneficial to the body because it's making you happy and building that oxytocin and all of those sort of things, which is really, really good. But at the same time, it's a very affordable way to eat organic or spray-free. One of the reasons why we want to avoid pesticides is because they are linked to impaired fetal development, and also because they are linked to poor gut health. So you may have heard of glyphosate or Roundup, and it gets a bit of a bad rap because it is linked to things like poor gut health. So we do want to do the best that we can in order to avoid that. What I would suggest, if you are definitely going to go for this option, go and find an organic market near you. If you're in Brisbane, the Northey Street markets on Sunday mornings are brilliant. That's where I like to go every Sunday morning with my husband, and we get a lot of our produce from there. And then the next best place to go is either to get a delivery service, so there's a lot of them around. Also, going to health food stores around the place, a lot of them will have fresh produce. We also really like getting our meat from the butcher at the market, but a lot of those butchers do supply to your local health food stores as well, and there are specific butchers around that actually only supply organic or grass-fed produce. It can be a little bit more expensive sometimes, but sometimes it's not, and there are some health food stores that will, you know, sell their meat at a discount a couple of days before the expiry date, just as your supermarket would. Supermarket produce that's organic is honestly, to me, a last resort. To be perfectly honest, I find supermarket produce that's organic much more expensive than markets or even health food stores, and it's always covered in plastic, which we're going to get to in a minute. Yeah, it's just not worth it to me. Now, the next thing to concentrate on when it comes to food, especially when you feel that, you know, buying organic may be out of reach as far as your budget is concerned, is eating whole foods. Now, I would much prefer you eating whole foods that are commercially produced and may have some pesticide residues on them than eating very processed foods. The reason for this is not only are they a lot of the times devoid of nutrients, they have a lot of chemical crap in them, so much. Things like preservatives, colours, flavours, and a lot of them can be hidden because labelling laws in Australia are quite lax. So for example, when it comes to things like tinned fruit, your fruit can still say no added sugar if the fruit that they used isn't as sweet as it was the season before, or the season that they're using to measure the sweetness of the fruit. And so they can actually add sugar to that level of sweetness and still say on the label, no added sugar. Another thing that they can say is no added MSG, but there are something like 36 different names for MSG. Definitely look those up. Yeast extract is probably the most well-known and most commonly used one, but MSG is something that is in so many things. Things like gravy powder, flavored packets of chips and biscuits. Basically any frozen meal that ever existed, because they all have yeast extract. You aren't able to eat Vegemite either. Preservatives as well. So many preservatives in food. Some of them are okay. Some foods can be preserved with things like vitamin C or salt or sugar even, but for the most part, a lot of your preservatives aren't great. Colors and flavors, we know they're not great for us, but realistically, if something is neon blue, there is nothing natural in the world that we actually can utilize in order to make that happen. So it's a chemical, best to avoid. The best thing about this particular strategy is what you really are doing is learning to cook. And that can take time, and there is a learning curve when it comes to cooking your own food, sure. But it's so important to know what's going in your food and what actually will make food taste good. Because once you learn skills like that, you can utilize them for the rest of your life, and you'll get to a point where creating recipes from just literally random stuff that you've got in your fridge is just a snap for you. And that's a really awesome feeling. Now, one thing that you can do if you aren't going to go organic, but you're going to at least try to do whole foods, is for starters, you can actually wash your vegetables before you put them in the fridge and prepare them. So that's simply by, you fill your sink with water and you put your produce in there with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and let it soak for about 10 minutes. There are heaps of guides on the internet on how to do that, but what that does is just helps to break down some of the really thick pesticide residues, and you'll be surprised what ends up in the bottom of your sink when you do this. The other thing to do is to read labels, and you will basically find that if you're doing this, most of the food that you will buy will be one ingredient foods. So you'll buy chicken thighs instead of marinated chicken thighs. The thing about avoiding toxins, it's all about getting back to those basics that we know are good for us, really. You know that cooking your own food with whole foods are going to make you feel better, and you will feel better just from switching from a frozen pre-made meal to making your own and freezing it in advance, things like that. But I highly recommend that you definitely look into doing this. And again, it's not about being perfect. There will be times where you might slip into old habits, and that's totally fine. It's not going to be an overnight change, and I don't expect it to be. But just think about the next time you think, oh, I'll just buy this jar sauce. Well, what's actually in the jar sauce? And can I quickly Google a recipe for a sauce that's similar, and how hard will it really be to make it? If you have trouble chopping things up, you can buy a food processor, you can buy a mandolin. There's heaps of different things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier and still not have to resort to chemical-laden crap. The third thing that I think is very, very easy to do as far as avoiding toxins is to look at your skincare, your cosmetics, and the chemicals that you clean your house with. Now, again, you want to start off small. You basically want to replace things that are, nearly on their last legs. So the things that you're avoiding in your skincare, cosmetics, and things like that are hormone disruptors, definitely heavy metals, especially in lipsticks. There can, of course, be pesticides if there are plant-based things and they're not organic. Sometimes preservatives, sometimes plastics. There's a whole range of different chemicals, plus all just the artificial colours and things that they put in there. A lot of the chemicals that are used in cosmetics and skincare and our cleaning products, they are very, very toxic to our health, and they don't necessarily even list the ingredients in their products because they don't necessarily have to. So you don't really know what's going into that product unless they have some sort of transparency. And even if they do, some of the chemicals are hideous. Some of them can lead to breast cancer and ovarian cancer, and you could easily pass that on to your baby if you're using it while you're pregnant. A lot of it can affect neurodevelopment and fetal growth. A lot of it can affect the expression of genes. And perfumes in particular, they have something called phthalates in them, and that can definitely increase your risk of premature birth and impair the neurodevelopment of your baby. So there are so many different products. I could go into specific cleaning products and stuff, but what I'm going to do is just give you this message and then give you a few recommendations of what I like to use. With your cleaning products, it's probably best to just get rid of the really toxic ones and replace those. They're usually fairly cost effective to replace anyway. But with your skincare and that sort of thing, just use them minimally in general. Unless you're particularly unhappy with them, just replace them as you go. So I'll go through a few of my favorite things. And I keep in mind, like, I'm not wearing makeup right now. I don't wear makeup very often. When I do, I'm quite minimal with it. So I'm not like a beauty guru or anything like that, but I'll just show you the sort of products that I like to use. So as far as my skincare is concerned, especially during pregnancy, the one thing that I've been doing is on my face, my breasts, and my belly is putting oil on everything before I put on moisturizer. So for me, I honestly just use sweet almond oil. Now this is one you get in the food section at the organic shop. It's actually more cost effective to get it from the food section, and you get more of it. Like, this bottle we've had since before I was pregnant, and I think it's still half full. And I use this every single day, sometimes twice a day. And what I do with this that I actually have found more effective is to actually add some essential oils to it. So I just have a small little dropper bottle, and I just put a couple of drops of lavender oil and some sort of citrus oil, usually just a couple of drops, not too much. And I found that that is much more healing, and it just helps it to absorb a lot better, and it just feels really nice. And you know, there's calming properties and things like the lavender. So I find that really, really beneficial. I only have a few stretch marks right at the bottom of my belly, and yeah, my skin in general just feels really, really good. So highly recommend that. Definitely very cheap compared to some of the options for serums and that sort of thing that you can get out there, but you don't necessarily have to put the essential oil in if you don't want to. As far as skincare products, there's one brand that I use, and I have gone through a lot. I, in the past, have had a lot of acne issues. I haven't had too much acne during this pregnancy. Obviously, I have a little spot at the moment, but generally, when in the past, I used to have lots and lots of acne. So I've searched high and low. I've tried a lot of things, and all I can say is Botani is the brand that I love, and I'm not usually like that, but I love their moisturizer. I love their acai serum. I used that in preparation for my wedding, and my skin was amazing. I love this mask. It's like a mask and exfoliant. I love their acne spot treatment, and their cleanser is the best cleanser I have ever used. It doesn't strip my skin at all. I'm currently not using it because I couldn't get my hands on it the last time I ran out, so I'm using a different one by Perfect Potion, and it's nowhere near as good. One of my favorite toxin-free products is the Weleda Salt toothpaste. And I know that sounds super weird, and I can tell you right now, the first few times you use this, it's gonna taste weird. But now I've been using this for nearly 2 years. It doesn't taste salty at all to me, and it makes my teeth so clean. I use this with a bamboo toothbrush because I want to avoid plastics, which I'll get to in a minute. But this toothpaste is brilliant. If you are looking for a low toxin toothpaste, seriously try this one before you go on any other brands, because I've tried so many. Once I found this one, oh my god, I was surprised at how amazing it was. My teeth feel so clean all the time, and I don't have any issues with my teeth either. So yeah, just highly recommend that one. There's other things to think about. Makeup, for example. I love using the Voe foundation. It's a powder. This is my mascara that I use, and I really love it. But anyway, it's really good. It doesn't smudge or anything. As far as natural mascaras go, most of them aren't waterproof, and this one is, so I really like that one. But there's other things to consider, so things like sunscreens, even bug sprays and stuff like that. So this is one we used when we were in Southeast Asia, and I didn't get that many mozzie bites, and we were covered in, like, I was in Cambodia in the jungle, and I really didn't get bitten that much at all. Every time I use it, it now reminds me of Cambodia. It's quite nice. There are so many different things to consider when it comes to this. Your body wash, your face wash, your deodorant. This deodorant I really like as well. This is the Alafia deodorant, and it is the Mandarin ginger with charcoal, turmeric, and neem. And it smells delicious. I really like it. The other thing you can do is when it comes to perfumes, if you are a perfume wearer, especially if you wear it every day, really, really consider swapping that out to something that might have an essential oil blend in it instead. Perfumes are a really big source of phthalates, and phthalates are really detrimental to your health. Phthalates are a chemical that increases the risk of premature birth and of impaired neurodevelopment of your baby. So you really want to be really wary of perfumes in general. And that's the thing, a lot of your cosmetics will have perfumes in them. That's why I opt for low toxin skincare, makeup, everything. But definitely, if you are going to wear perfume, if you have a favorite perfume, just wear it very sparingly, wear it very occasionally, not every single day, and then look for something that's a low toxin option for other days. I personally wouldn't recommend getting your hair dyed during pregnancy. I know that some people really feel that they need to, but if you are, try to go to a salon that has an open window or something so that you can at least get some fresh air and so that you're not breathing those toxins in. I personally would also avoid going into nail salons that are all closed off and all you can smell is the chemicals as well. Because remember that it's not just what you're absorbing through your skin and eating, it's also what you're breathing in. So if you can get somebody to come to your house and do your nails, or if you know somebody that owns a salon that has that breeze and that open window situation, that's definitely going to be much better. There are nail polishes out there that are low toxin as well. But yeah, just keep those things in mind. There are hair dyes that you can buy from health food stores as well. But again, I mean, personally for me, I'm lucky with my hair color. It's quite nice and I like it. I don't have to dye my hair. I don't really have many grays yet. And I do understand the need to do that and I don't judge you for it, but I would definitely at least try to find somewhere, like my hairdresser, she definitely has open windows and it's beautiful. Happy to let you know which one that is if you like, but generally, yeah, just make sure that wherever you're going, you're not breathing in those chemicals. The other thing to keep in mind with toxins and skincare and all of those personal care type things is not necessarily for pregnant women, but when you're not pregnant and you are menstruating, you want to go for organic options of tampons and pads, or even try a menstrual cup, or even you can buy reusable fabric pads, things like that. So that's definitely something that you want to consider as well. I personally like the Tom's organic pads and tampons, and especially for maternity pads. They have some maternity pads which I am keen to give a go. But again, you can use reusable fabric ones if you want. And there's also that underwear, which I haven't tried yet, but you know, I hear good things. Another huge source of toxins in our world is plastic. Now, plastic has things like phthalates and bisphenols, which you can absorb when you have anything acidic, any food that's acidic next to plastic. And you can absorb bisphenols by heating your food in plastic, so it's really a good idea to go for a ceramic or glass option instead of plastic, especially if you microwave your food. If you can, try to go for things that are stored in ceramic or glass, and store your food in ceramic or glass. If you're going to reheat something, you want to reheat it in ceramic or glass rather than plastic, especially if you use a microwave. It's very easy to just get a bowl and pour your food in there to reheat it in that microwave rather than reheating it in that plastic container, because it will leach out those chemicals into your food, and then when you eat it, you will be absorbing those chemicals. So the most well-known bisphenol is BPA or bisphenol A, but there are many of them. So even if something says that it is BPA free, does not mean that it doesn't have the other bisphenols in them. Bisphenols have been linked to, you know, poor psychomotor development, ADHD symptoms in the child later in life, and also altered brain development. So of course we want to avoid that as much as possible. In the linings of cans, there's usually plastic, so if you've got tomatoes, for example, or like just anything really, because it all gets heated when it's in there, it will absorb the bisphenols from that plastic. You can even get it from the plastic on your steering wheel because your hands are quite warm and we do absorb things through our skin, remember, so it might be worth getting some sort of a fabric cover to go over your steering wheel to avoid absorption of that, especially if you spend a lot of time in your car. Drink bottles, the inside lining of a takeaway coffee cup is plastic, as well as the lid, so that warm beverage is going to be leaching the plastic into it and then you're consuming it. It's another reason basically to get reusable coffee cups, reusable straws, reusable drink bottles, and even going for things like bamboo toothbrushes, like I mentioned before, that basically reduce your exposure to plastics. By reducing your exposure to plastics, you're reducing your exposure to bisphenols. Another source that is really common is Teflon. So if you're going to cook, try to cook with a stainless steel pan, a cast iron pan, or even ceramic pans. So they can be a really beneficial thing to use when you're cooking, but even just think about the implements that you're using. If they're plastic, it might be worth switching over to something that's made from stainless steel or made from even silicone. Silicone's not the greatest, but you know, it's better than plastic. Making sure that your house is nice and clean is really, really important. Of course, when we're cleaning, we want to make sure that we're using low toxin cleaning products, which there are so many out there on the market. You can make your own using vinegar, and bicarb soda is probably the easiest and most effective way to do that. But you can buy them pre-made if you're not really into making your own stuff. But it is a really important thing to make sure that you live in a tidy house that has minimal dust, because chemicals tend to like to hang out in a dusty environment. Personally, I have a robot vacuum, which is just a godsend, can I tell you. I still need to vacuum the house regularly myself, just a once over, but it just means that there's less dust hanging around the house. And I personally make my own spray and wipe with a citrus soaked vinegar and some soap solution that I make from soap berries. Soap berries I have spoken about before. If you want to know more about them, I actually clean my clothes in them, and like I said, I make this spray and wipe solution. But there are plenty of brands available at the supermarket in order to clean your clothes and clean your house very effectively, that are definitely low toxin. But the thing to keep in mind is that they're not going to be as soapy as what you might be used to. That doesn't mean they're any less effective. They actually do clean really, really well. And you just don't want to overdo how much you use. You still would want to use whatever's recommended on the packet, rather than going, well, it's not very soapy, and then using 4 times as much. For starters, it's really wasteful. It's not going to clean it any better. The reason why is because it doesn't have a lot of the stabilizers and other chemicals that they use in, you know, non-eco-friendly cleaning products. So the bubbles are meant to break down. That's kind of what they normally do. So just keep that in mind. It might take a little bit of getting used to, but you'll notice that your house is still very, very clean when you use them. So don't worry about that. Now, one of the major things that you can do just when it comes to toxins, because we live in a toxic world, because we are exposed to toxins all the time and we can't really help some of them, is to just make sure that you're eating really well. And it comes back to the same things that I always talk about. Drinking lots and lots of filtered, clean water is a really good way to just help everything flow through. So even if you are absorbing toxins, they have some way to get out, which is really important. I personally have a ceramic fluoride filter, so it gets out the fluoride and also the chlorine from my water, and I tend to just naturally drink about 3 to 4 litres of water a day during pregnancy. Eat lots of green leafy vegetables, because they will provide the minerals and the vitamins that help everything to clear out, which is what we want as far as toxins are concerned. And just generally eat as well as you can. Eat whole foods, avoid sugar, avoid excess caffeine. Obviously, you want to avoid things like alcohol and cigarette smoke during your pregnancy as much as you possibly can. If you're having a day where you just feel like you've come into contact with lots of toxic stuff, I highly recommend making yourself a nice organic green juice. Just again, to give your body all of those antioxidants and just counteract whatever's going on. The last thing I want you to do is stress about any of this. That is not the point of this video. Again, all we really want to do is reduce the impact of these chemicals on the development of our baby. One thing you need to understand is that you can actually inherit your toxin load from your parents and your grandparents. Anything that you're exposed to, even before you get pregnant, can be passed on to your baby, which is why we like to do detoxification way before conception, part of a preconception plan. So that's really important. There are plenty of steps that you can take in order to minimize your toxic load. So do keep that in mind. Don't make this a stressful thing. If you have any other questions on particular products that you'd like to know more about, I'm happy to do another video on, my skincare stuff, because I did not at all go into detail with what I use, even cleaning products that I like to use, that sort of stuff. I think the basics are: eat organic where you can, eat whole foods where you can, drink a lot of water, and avoid obvious toxins. Just do that and you will be so much better for it. You will feel so much better for it. Your liver will work so much better for it, and your baby will be so much better for it as well. So it's just really basic tips, really, just with a little bit of extra detail. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications, and share this with somebody that you think might actually benefit. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.